This is going to be a 2-episode journey. We're going to first talk about the hospital visit and the birth, and then we're going to talk in the next episode about the postpartum journey. Welcome to the Kung Fu Mama Show. This is the very, very, very first show for Sarita Kara. Say hi, everybody. Hi. You notice she looks a little hungry, though. Okay, so we're sort of finally situated at home and now adjusting to our new life with a newborn. And I wanted to tell you guys about what we've been up to for the past couple of weeks. The birth, postpartum center, and everything that we've been through. And are having a newborn in the house who cried all last night. And I forgot about the newborn life. And I do realize that, yeah, sleep is something that is very, very valuable that we will be missing. Oh, exactly. And now I'm like very distracted.
So how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good. In terms of myself, my body, and recovery-wise, I feel great. Like in terms of adjusting to newborn life, I forgot how difficult it was in the very beginning because I forgot about the lack of sleep. And sometimes, even though there's only like a couple things that could be going wrong, say like she's not feeding or she's not eating or she needs to change her diaper. Sometimes it's hard to tell which one it is. Okay, so when Sasa or Sarita Kara, hello world, this is Sarita Kara. And I think she might be a little hungry right now. But anyways, when she was born, she was 2.96 kilograms. 2.96 kilograms. In Taiwan, we use kilograms. So that's probably a little around 6 pounds. And then now she weighs about 3.26 kilograms. So since the first month until now, she has, grown maybe 200 grams. And 300. And then her jaundice went down, so it's in normal range already. She is growing. I mean, before she was very skinny, which I'll tell you about later about our hospital experience. And now she's got like a nice little chubby belly. She's got some cheeks and everything. She's starting to look more like a little cutie newborn with some little baby fat, right? Yes. And then, yeah, she's doing really well. Generally, which is what I've been telling everyone since she's born. She's a very easy baby to deal with. Except maybe when she's hungry during a podcast, which I probably might need to feed her during our podcast, because that's what moms do. Babies eat, people eat, everybody eats, So, so baby's doing very well. She feeds very well, and then she sleeps very well, and she doesn't cry a lot. So she's been sort of like a dream baby, and oh my gosh, she like burps by herself. Insane. I've never heard of babies burping by themselves, but this girl just like burps by herself. You don't even have to put her in the right position. She just burps, and it's just like amazing. So that is the lowdown on Sarita Kara. But last night she wasn't feeding properly, so you never know what's gonna happen. Yeah, so that's basically what's going on. Should we get a nursing cloth so I can feed her? Sasa. And then what's even better about this whole thing is that Kali Chang Soberano my darling, is amazing. She loves the baby. She tells all her friends she has a mei mei. In Taiwan, that means little sister. And she gives her kisses. She even kissed her little feetsies today. And I'm very happy with the transition so far. For the big baby to the little baby. And she is hungry. So we're going to feed her. This is going to be the future of all episodes. We're going to have very long pauses where I'm feeding babies. Don't know what else to do. Okay. So, wait, I think we did this before. Last year, I was still feeding Kali, right? All right, full circle, Kung Fu Mama. Back to the feeding time.
All right, so yeah, we had quite the journey. I mean, I say this whole experience, the second pregnancy, has been quite a journey. A lot of things happened, and then especially during the birth, it was very challenging. A lot of people don't realize this, but people see you, they see your posts, and they're like thinking, wow, that was a great, like, smooth sailing, birth and delivery. But actually it wasn't, and this is what we're going to talk about, right? I mean, talk about your hospital journey first, and then we're going to talk about the postpartum center journey.
Yeah, so basically when we were in the hospital giving birth, my first C-section was quite smooth. It took 10 minutes. I was still chatting up with the nurses, and then the baby came out. She cried. It was wonderful. Right after the surgery, I got to do skin to skin. Kali latched right away, and then the hospital stay was smooth sailing. I mean, it was definitely an experience to learn about breastfeeding and learn all the ways to take care of the baby. But they're very friendly and knowledgeable, the nurses there, and they really helped me through the experience. So generally, I thought that it was quite smooth. For the second surgery, I sort of expected this to be very similar. But what happened was, during the surgery, I felt like it was seemed like it was a little bit difficult to get the baby out. They had to push down on my stomach, and then they had to turn the baby. I wasn't really sure what was happening, but from what I was hearing, from behind the cloth, as you know, in a C-section, you're put on anesthesia, and then you get an epidural. So you basically can't feel from your right above your stomach down. Like that whole section, you can't really feel anything. And usually they do the epidural about 30 minutes before your birth. This time I feel they did the epidural just about maybe just 10 minutes about 10 minutes before we got started. So I still felt like right after they give you the epidural, you sort of feel like sort of pins and needles. And it'll first kill off your pain sensors. And then after that, you just sort of feel pressing, which is kind of similar to what happened in my first surgery. But I think that they waited like slightly longer in the first surgery before I started the operation. And then, when the surgery was happening, I felt that there was some difficulty in getting the baby out. This time I had a lot more amniotic fluid than the first, and my stomach was a lot bigger. And I don't know if it was the position. The funny thing was this time my baby was in the right position. The first time my baby was breech, but this time my baby was in the right position. But then for some reason they still had to turn her. I'm just hearing this, from behind the cloth. And then they had to, seemed that they used a lot of force to get the baby out. So it was I was not really sure what was going to happen. And then I also opted for, instead of just an epidural, I also had spinal morphine it's supposed to last for about 24 hours after. And that made me nauseous. So during the birth process, I was also very nauseous. And and I was very nauseous. And then while all of this was happening, I wasn't sure what was going on down there, but it sounded like there was some trouble. But then the baby came out, and she was beautiful, of course. Yes, you're beautiful. You're very beautiful. Anyways, so and then after that, they took the baby, and then they took me to a recovery room for 30 minutes. And I was like, whoa, 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 what's going on here? Like, where's the baby? I thought I'm supposed to do skin to skin with the baby. And they're like, nope, you're going into recovery. You're going to stay here for 30 minutes, and we're just going to check to make sure everything's okay. So this is a normal process, I guess, after surgery. And that's something different because the first hospital we went to, it's a maternity clinic. And this hospital that we went to, it's more like a general hospital that has a very good maternity department in the hospital. So I guess in some respects that going to a large hospital, like a large general hospital, they have a lot of different processes and a lot of different surgeries are going through the same process. So I didn't feel like I was in a maternity type of operating room. It seemed like a general operating room, whereas in the other hospital, it was like obviously only deliver babies in the entire hospital. That's all they do. So it's definitely a different experience. And then, so there I am, sitting next to, I guess, other people who had operations. I'm just laying there, and all of a sudden, finally, the epidural is completely in, and I cannot feel like any part of my body, not any part, but from my waist down, I really can't feel. Like, I started thinking about like Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. I was like, I can't wiggle my big toe, that's for sure. That was sort of scary because I feel like that usually the onset of not feeling anything is usually during your surgery, and then it's not like it completely starts feeling like that like right after your surgery. I'm like, oh God, am I going to be able to move my feet again? So that was kind of terrifying. And the second thing was I was like, where the heck is the baby? So the baby never came. And then so they pushed me back to the room, and I'm like, okay, what is going on? And then the doctor comes in and says, oh, your baby, she has trouble breathing. We're going to have to put her on a respirator. I'm like, what? Like, what is going on here? So the baby had too much amniotic fluid in her system. So I think that, I don't know how the process was, or maybe I just had so much amniotic fluid that the baby, swallowed too much. And when you do a C-section, apparently happens in 10% of C-section babies, that they have too much amniotic fluid in their system. And that's because they don't go through the vaginal passage. And so when you go through the vaginal passage, then the baby gets squeezed. So all the water gets sort of squeezed out, I guess. So in C-section babies, you really have to empty out all the water, or all the fluids. And I guess this time it wasn't completely emptied out. So she had to go into a respirator. So she went to it's called a NICU, N-I-C-U, the neonatal intensive care unit. And then, they had to put her on a respirator. And then right now, in Taiwan, they're very strict about COVID rules. So for COVID, intensive care unit, you can only have visitation hours between 10:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Per day. So basically they're telling me, oh, sign this paper. Your baby's going to the intensive care unit. And sign this paper. You can only go in and see her between 10:30 and 11 every day. And that's it. And there's only 2 visitors. Limited to 2 visitors. Okay, so yeah, nobody's going to see the baby. Just me and Vince are going to see the baby this week because we don't even get to see her. And so I was like, I was just in so much shock. And because this is my second baby, I just expected to see my baby. I expected to have the skin to skin. It's just probably because I had all these expectations from the first birth. This one, yeah, I was in a really pretty bad place, you know. It was really sad. It was really sad. I couldn't see the baby. And then on top of that, I was in a lot of pain. So this time opting for spinal morphine probably was not the best idea for me. I felt like the spinal morphine really just wore off, you know, maybe around 6 p.m. I had my surgery at 9:30, I think, around 9:30, around 10 a.m., 9:30 to 10 a.m., around that time. And by 6 p.m., I felt like the spinal morphine had already wore off. And I was like, I am in pain. Oh my gosh, this really hurts. Oh shoot, this is what they mean by, you know, like, why would you go for a C-section? Because a C-section, the recovery time is much longer. A lot of people do say that. And from my first C-section, I feel like I didn't really feel that because I ended up having the epidural. I left it in, and so they could add more like painkillers, and you can just press a button. So there's several different methods of painkillers that you can use. But for this one, I just opted for spinal morphine, and then after that, you're just on pills. 2 different types of pills. One they usually use for cramps, and the other one was just Tylenol. And so I basically, because I was in so much pain, I felt like none of those things worked. But they did, because actually the pain was more than the painkiller. So I had these 2 painkillers on. I felt like it didn't work, but then when I switched painkillers, it was like still like even more painful. I was like, oh, okay, so they are working. I just would need more, which I shouldn't be. You know, you obviously have to limit yourself on how many painkillers you take a day. So I was already in pain, and then I can't see the baby. It just really sucked. And then also, I wasn't a big fan of the food at the hospital as well. So it was like the food wasn't great. I'm in pain, and I can't actually get more painkillers. I can't really do anything to fix that. And then I can't see the baby. So then I called the intensive care unit, and I begged them for me to see the baby. And then they're like, oh yeah, you can see the baby if you can get off the bed. And I was like, oh shoot, right, I'm in a lot of pain. Can I get off the bed? Oh my goodness. So my doctor actually feels that the earlier you get off the bed, the faster you're going to recover. And then also because I'm Kung Fu Mama, guys. She's seen my videos. She's seen me practicing wushu pregnant. And she's seen all this, and she'd be like, you're going to be fine. You can get off the bed. You can do this. So I sort of felt this intense pressure that I should be fine and I can get off the bed. But definitely, I don't think I was ready. I didn't feel like I was ready. But I did it anyways because I really wanted to see the baby. So with extreme pain, I got out of the bed, jumped into a wheelchair, and that was at 11 p.m. The day of my surgery. And I wheeled over to see the baby. And so she's sort of in like a sort of a little plastic box, and there's just 2 holes where you can put your hands in. So we basically just get to like pet the baby. Oh, I mean, she was beautiful and amazing, but it was so heartbreaking to see her with the tubes and the respirator. And then you can tell that they had trouble getting the needle in for, you know, she probably needed extra fluids or medicine and things like that. You know, she had little bruises where the needles were. They tried to do the arm, her hand, and then they also tried to do like different parts. And then you saw that the needle was actually in her foot. And I just, it was so heartbreaking. And she was so skinny, and she was in the respirator. Anyways, so we saw the baby. Thank God we saw the baby. But then it was like half an hour later, like, okay, get out of here. You're only allowed 30 minutes. And we're just like, oh, okay, bye, baby. So after that, the next day we can only see her for 30 minutes a day. And on top of that, they would not let me breastfeed her. So day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, until day 5, finally they let me breastfeed her. But before that, they told me that the baby has a condition called feeding cyanosis. So cyanosis is a condition where basically while she's feeding, she ends up turning blue and she can't breathe. So her breathing is very unsteady. And the thing is that actually, because obviously we're not medical doctors, we go on Google and figure out what is he saying. And what we found was that we saw another condition called feeding stenosis. So they're two different things. And so the doctor was talking about cyanosis, and we were looking at feeding stenosis. And thank goodness we saw that, because, well, feeding stenosis is a condition where the baby starts feeding and she feeds bottle feeding, and then she feeds too quickly. She forgets to breathe. And so then it'll cause her, to have shortness of breath and she's not unable to breathe. And then this is a condition actually that's onset by bottle feeding the baby. So after reading about that, we're like, oh my God, we've got to get her out of the neonatal intensive care, because I need to breastfeed her. And they finally let me breastfeed though, but which means I can go in when she's hungry, outside of the visiting hours, but I still only have 30 minutes. I have 30 minutes to teach a baby who's only been bottle feeding how to breastfeed. And every time I go in there, I try to get her to breastfeed. She can only latch maybe by the last 5 minutes. And then she eats like just a tiny bit. And then they're like, all right, get out. It's time. I'm like, what? So it was just so difficult. So by the end of the 5th day, we're leaving. Usually you stay, we're supposed to stay until Saturday. And then we ended up staying until Friday. I was like, you know what? This is too much. Let's go to the postpartum center. So I checked into the postpartum center early one day while the baby was still stuck in the neonatal intensive care unit, because they wouldn't let me. They wouldn't discharge the baby. So yeah, that's basically what happened for our hospital stay. And then, so after I've already left the hospital, I had to actually go back to the hospital every 3 hours to go and try to breastfeed the baby, which was exhausting. And mind you, I'm still in pain, actually, which I'm surprised, because it's already been like 5 days. I'm still in pain. I'm still on painkillers. It's hard for me to move around, to actually... The big thing is about getting on and off the bed, like sitting up and laying down. That whole process is just so painful, especially on my like sides. So where you have your scar, right, on the very edges of your scar, usually that's where it hurts the most, or it stings the most for the longest. Even right up till today, I still have a little bit of stinging in those areas. Yeah, and then after that, I was just going back and forth from the hospital. And finally, the doctor said that he'll discharge the baby if the postpartum center will take the baby. And at this point, they're still saying that she has cyanosis. So the postpartum center thinks that the baby cannot breathe. So they're like, okay, we don't have a respirator. We can't take that kind of baby. So, yeah. And then amazing husband here did something amazing. So So yeah, Vince came and had a really, really great and bold idea.
Well, we were sort of in a catch-22, right? So the hospital was ready to release the baby to us, but the postpartum center wouldn't accept the baby because they thought that she had feeding cyanosis, and that they didn't have any oxygen tanks or any respiratory equipment to help the baby. So they basically turned us down on that one. Okay, so I decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and pick up the baby anyway. The hospital is only like about a 5-minute cab ride from where we were. We were already staying at the postpartum center. We went to the hospital, picked up the baby anyway, and I told Sarah, let's just take the baby, take him back to the postpartum center and tell them, here's the baby. We're sitting in the lobby right now. If you're not going to accept the baby, if you're not let the baby in, we're going to check out right now. We're going to check out and we're going to go home. And we're going to take care of the baby by ourselves at home. And, and you can keep the money if you guys can't extend our stay, or we can come back when the baby's better. And either way, I said, there's no amount of money that, that can pay for our baby's life, basically, and health. And I thought, there's no way we're going to leave the baby in the hospital where she can't breastfeed. And the more she bottle feeds, the more the stenosis, the feeding stenosis will get worse, because that's what we assumed it was. Thanks, Dr. Google. Anyway, we did that. So we ended up back at the postpartum center with a baby with us, and the front desk were like, well, I don't know, let me talk to the nurse, but the nurse had is already off work. So we went ahead and said, you know what, call the nurse, ask her what she thinks, because we're ready to move out like right now.
Yeah, and actually what happened was the head nurse, she came and she actually took off from her holiday and came right into work. I mean, she even brought her husband and her baby. They were so accommodating. They just came in right away, and she talked to me about the situation. I told the head nurse about this feeding stenosis situation, and I said, look, I just need some time to breastfeed my baby more than 30 minutes, and everything is going to be fine. I can take full responsibility for what happens. I actually had to sign a waiver from the hospital when I took the baby home, and they're like, we're not responsible for this. I'm like, fine, I'm responsible. This is my baby. I know what she needs. She needs me to breastfeed her, and that's it. And that was exactly what she needed. And the head nurse was like, you know what? It's gonna be fine. I mean, I think this was a miscommunication. They were saying she can't breathe. And, they were saying this is, big problem. We're going to need a respirator, things like that. So the head nurse okayed it. We just we just moved into the postpartum center, and really everything was completely fine. I just breastfed the baby, and she had no breathing problems. Not even once. So and before this, a nurse at the hospital was telling me that it happens every single time they bottle feed her. Every single time she can't breathe. But then once we took her home, took her to the postpartum center, never happened again. So that was amazing.
So yeah, that was great. That's basically our hospital experience the entire time, and we're ready to talk about our postpartum experience. From that point on, by the time the entire family was reunited at the postpartum center, including Kali, who came and stayed with us the first few nights, everything was great. It was amazing, and Sarah's going to tell us more about the postpartum experience.